Hello!
Hi! Welcome back.
To the podcast. Andy?
And Maddie! Welcome back, guys. It is episode 6. We are out here. We are going strong.
We are going strong. 6 weeks.
Craziness. I hope you guys have been enjoying the podcast so far. I know that we have been having fun talking about all of these different topics and just kind of like easing into this podcast, and this is something that we've talked about for so long. I'm so happy that we're finally getting to actually be here with you guys. That being said, we have a very interesting topic today that is a little bit different than what we've been doing. Obviously we have a lot of interests, we have a lot of experiences that we've had in our life, and we thought this might be a fun topic today. So Andrew, do you want to tell them what we're going to be discussing today?
So today we're going to be talking about our personal paranormal experiences.
Ooh.
So yes, the things that are unexplainable, things that I guess have really proven to both of us that there must be something else other than the physical world that we know of as reality out there. And
this is something that we've always talked about. I mean, I think we literally talked about it in the first episode, that one of the very first things we bonded about when we first became friends, when we were like 14 years old, was our paranormal experiences. And the fact that we both believed in ghosts. And I mean, so much has happened since then, so it's only become more ingrained. It was something that we had always experienced since we were children. I mean, I guess we can start there. Like, when we met each other, we already knew that we believed in paranormal things, that we had paranormal experiences, and that we felt connected to that energy. So maybe we can start there and kind of talk about our childhood experiences. I know you had some crazy experiences. I had some crazy experiences. So buckle up, guys, because it's going to be a crazy episode. Really fun, interesting, but definitely a little spooky. Do you want to start?
I honestly would start with the story of my dad having dreams of things that were going to happen. So
interesting.
My grandmother also had dreams about things that were going to happen. So premonition dreams. And essentially one time my dad and I were driving home. He picked me up from school. We made our way down the same street that we normally drove down. And what we saw, well, I didn't see anything. And my dad didn't see anything either, actually, at first. But what
I've never heard this story.
Yes, you have.
I don't know. Have I?
You have.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, I'm just engaged. I'm sorry. I'm engaged.
So thank you for being engaged.
Yeah.
So what happened is that we're driving down the same road that we always drive down, and my dad suddenly goes from about 40 miles per hour to 0. And in a split second, about like maybe half of a second, just stops the car. And I was looking out the window being my angsty teenage self. And I look over at my dad and I remember asking him, like, what's wrong? And he looks over at me. We look back at the street, and then a ball goes right in front of the car, and a little boy goes running after the ball. Basically no way for my dad to have known that this was going to happen. This happened in lifetime. This happened in front of my own eyes. This happened right then and there. And the ball and the boy, they were playing behind parked cars along the street. So even if my dad, somehow had seen this, I don't think my dad would have been able to know to stop that, those couple seconds in advance. And my dad just looked at me afterwards when the kid got the ball and went to the other side of the street. And he told me that I had a dream last night that I was going to potentially run over a little kid. And I knew that it was going to happen right here. That's one of the moments where I was in shock, and I really did know. I reflected on that moment afterwards of, okay, wow, so my family really does have this. Because on both sides of my family, they've had paranormal experiences, and they've also had these premonition type dreams that at least give them some sort of message. And so that was definitely one of the main things that really proved to me at an early age. I was about 12 or 13. I was like a preteen. And that was where I was proven that my father has this ability.
Triggered something in you. Made you expand your perspective on things.
Yes, exactly.
For sure. No, I can see that.
And what about you?
I mean, it's hard to say what my first kind of triggers were, because to be completely honest, I mean, I almost don't remember a time that I didn't at least believe in ghosts. I think that's kind of like the stereotype of like paranormal activity, right? It's just like everyone thinks of ghosts and you know, now I'm like, I've had so many different experiences. But I mean, even as a little kid, like, you know, growing up with my cousins, we would all kind of have interesting experiences. Like, we were convinced that their house was haunted, and they had some crazy experiences in their house that I never personally had like an intense experience with. But I knew that I was very sensitive to certain energies very early on. And I felt different energies, you know, in different places. And I just always knew that that stuff was real. There would be instances where I had certain, you know, things that would happen to me where my things would go missing, my things would be moved. I also had family members that had, like, you know, extra sensitivities to certain things. And so I think that it was just kind of like accepted that that was real. And, you know, of course, I also had experiences. Like, I vividly remember one time, this is kind of random, but I feel like actually this was a big moment for me, even though it was so small. I vividly remember being maybe like 5 or 6, and I was laying in bed. And I was about to go to sleep, and I was just lying there, and I swore I felt someone grab me. Like, I felt someone, like, grab my back like this, and I was, honestly, I was kind of shocked, and I was low-key terrified, because I was like, something just touched me. Like, it literally felt like something grabbed me. I immediately turned around. My parents weren't there. You know, it just didn't make any sense to me. And, you know, slowly things started happening where I was becoming more and more aware. And another big thing, I think, for me, too, was the first UFO I saw. Because, yeah, it was with my entire family. I talked about this in my video that I made about why I believe in UFOs on my channel. I go into more of my experiences, but that was a big moment for me because I was at I think it was my brother's birthday party, I'm pretty sure, but we were in my backyard in my house, and my entire family was there. We were outside. It was probably about sunset, and I must have been maybe maximum 10 years old also. Yeah, like, we were all outside. We see this craft. One of my uncles pointed it out first, and he was like, I think he asked my dad or maybe one of my other uncles, he was like, what is that? And I kind of heard them, and then, you know, everyone started kind of looking at this. It was this triangular craft, 3 lights. It wasn't even dark completely, right? So you could pretty vividly see this craft, and we were all watching it, and it was just sitting there, like super, super, super still. It was not moving. It was not an airplane, and it didn't look like an airplane. It looked distinctly like a triangle. And, you know, I was just a little kid, right? And you think when you're a little kid that adults have all the explanations and they have all the answers. But this was a moment where no one at that party, my entire family, you know, all these people that are my adult figures that I would go looking to for answers, none of them knew what it was. And we were all just sitting there and staring at it, and I was like, so UFOs are real. And, you know, I was just shocked. I was shocked. And so I think that was also a big moment that opened my eyes for sure of like,
there's more out there.
So much that we don't understand for sure.
I also had a similar experience with the UFO that my whole family witnessed as well. But I really don't want to go too much in detail with that one. I want to actually just mention another small ghost story, which is a cute ghost story because when I was a little boy, my mom, she had this thing where, well, she was bipolar, and she had this need and want to always have animals, which is something that I now have as an adult. I love animals. I love cats and dogs. And I want to rescue them and blah, blah. Like, I completely get it. But it gets to a point where it's like my mom would just get puppies and get animals and things like this. And so she got this Cocker Spaniel puppy from this man. And we only had the puppy for 1 weekend, and then it passed away. And it was like so depressing to me and my brother. We were so sad. And I remember the first day after the little puppy had passed away, I heard its little collar going down the stairs. Like, I heard what we had heard that weekend. I heard that puppy walking down the stairs. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, wow, like when I was telling my mom, like, mom, I heard the puppy, like I heard the little dog, like, you know, like, why would a little boy make this up?
Yeah,
you know, there's no reason why. Like, and it's funny because it's almost like I tried to like convince myself that this was something that maybe didn't happen because of the reaction that I got from my mother and from my family.
Right.
But no, like, why would a kid just like start saying these things?
Yeah.
I had no reason to lie about that. You know, it was definitely one of the cuter more like heartfelt moments of like that puppy spirit was still there.
Yeah, not all paranormal experiences have to be scary. And I feel like, honestly, that actually kind of reminds me of an experience that I had that I also feel like I low-key have kind of like gaslit myself into believing, did that happen? But I vividly did. I can still literally see myself as a little kid experiencing this, and I know that this happened. And it was, okay, so at Christmas, for years, when I was young, one of my uncles would always, like, put on a Santa costume, pretend to be Santa Claus. I feel like I've told you the story, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, we've shared all these stories with each other, obviously. But you guys haven't heard them, that's all that matters. But yeah, so, okay, so my uncle would always dress up as Santa Claus, and, you know, at first, we had no idea it was, you know, my uncle, and they would switch. It was always, like, a different person, you know, to not make it too sketchy. But, you know, they did their best to, like, play the part, of course. You know, they just wanted to keep all us kids entertained. And, yeah, so they would come and, like, you know, they would, like, have, you know, the whole costume and be like, ho, 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 whatever, right? So I remember specifically there would be times where I would hear bells, okay? This is very random.
Oh my gosh, she heard Santa.
Listen to me, okay? Hear me out. I'm just telling you the truth, okay? This might make me look insane. I have no explanation for this, but that's the whole point, right? I mean, how else do I categorize it other than paranormal? I don't know. Because this is the thing about it. I'm getting to it. But, okay. So I vividly remember me and my cousins experiencing at least 2 years. I specifically remember at least 2 years where we would hear footsteps on the roof and we would hear bells, right? You could hear the bells. My uncle at his house, he had several like sunroofs. And so I remember specifically the sound of like the steps over the sunroof. I remember like the sound of the bells traveling like over the roof, you know? And this is the real thing that trips me out is not just me. I did not just hear it. All of my cousins, my brother, we all heard it and we would all react to it at the exact same time, okay? Now, I didn't even think anything of this for years and years and years until I brought it up to my parents one day and I was like, oh yeah, I remember when you guys would like walk across the roof and like do the bells, like that was such a commitment, you know, whatever. We were just kind of talking about it and how I think I was just telling them like, oh yeah, we all knew it was the uncle like after a while, but we just pretended for you guys, whatever. And I brought this up to them and they adamantly denied that they ever did that. And this is once I was already older. Like, I know, like, you know, knowing my parents, I don't think that they would lie to me about that. I don't think that they're not the type of people that would be like, you know, telling me this just to like
throw you
give
off.
me some kind of wonder or something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
or they would literally not lie about that. And they completely denied it. They said that did not happen. No one ever went on the roof. No, there was no bells. And I was bamboozled because I truly am telling you, I vividly remember hearing this. And I also remember reacting to it with my cousins. It's like, I don't know, is it a Mandela effect? You know? I mean, I have no idea. Like, am I not in that dimension anymore?
Maybe it was like a Santa poltergeist.
But you know what? Now that I do say that, I will say this as well. Okay, for those of you who don't know what a Mandela effect is, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do, okay? But I just want to bring up one other, like, small thing really quick, okay? I swear, I know that sounds ridiculous, okay? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the Mandela effect is essentially when you remember something happening. Specifically, it's usually a large group of people, right? So it's like something in pop culture, something that a lot of people know about. That's what's most commonly known is, like, a bunch of people remember something happening a certain way or something being a certain way, different than how it actually was or what actually happened. Now, it's called the Mandela effect because a lot of people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison, but he did not die in prison. He got out of prison and became the president of South Africa, and that's what really happened. But tons of people remember watching his funeral live on TV, and that's where the name came from. But there's so many different examples of this Mandela effect. Did you even know that?
I mean, I knew about the Mandela effect, but I didn't know about that they saw his funeral and things like that.
And so many of the examples of the Mandela effect are things like that, or, you know, things similar to that. That's obviously what it's named after, but there's so many different examples of tons of people remembering things a certain way that isn't how it actually is. For example, brand logos, like the Berenstain Bears one, like that it's spelled differently. There's so many, I mean, there's probably thousands that people have remembered to this point, right?
Wow.
And people are realizing more and more every day, right? So the idea with these Mandela effects and the kind of theory behind it is that Mandela effects. The idea behind the Mandela effects is that potentially, you know, maybe certain people are shifting timelines, or that, you know, different parallel realities are merging. There's so many different theories as to why this could be happening, right? But and so I've even wondered, is this my own personal Mandela effect? Because I also had another experience from my childhood, which I also started tripping out on, that I actually realized when I was maybe 12 or 13. I vividly remember watching a movie when I was young, okay? And it's this movie. It's the most random movie ever, too. I don't know why I was obsessed with it as a kid. And I remember watching it all the time. I mean, it was my favorite movie at one point, okay? And, you know, when you're a little kid, you really like a movie, you're going to watch it so many times, right? I loved this movie. It was about this man who came from a star, of course, me and aliens, you know. It was like this alien man who came to Earth and, you know, whatever. I swear I remember watching this movie maybe at least 40, 50 times. I brought this up to my mom one time, and she was like, I think we watched that movie once. And I did not understand how she didn't remember that we would always watch that movie. And I swear to you, this is real. I vividly remember...
Onset dementia, Maddie.
Shut up! You're like,
She's
I
like,
don't think it's
Mandela
the
effect.
Mandela effect. No,
I'd like to mention to manifest that this video is sponsored in part by. Just kidding. But
we wish it was
are
sponsored in part
manifesting
by,
that we are
because
sponsored in part by Synergy Kombucha.
the official drink of the Money and Andy podcast.
Yes, we drink this in mini episodes.
Yes, we do. I know.
And
do you
you
hear
hear-
that?
yeah,
That's
you
the
hear the-
ASMR of our. Let's do it again. Ready?
Okay, ready. Ah!
It's what I do at that time. It's
Okay.
because we have to wait. We'll do it later. It's
No,
because,
no,
it has
this-
to build the carbonation.
Okay,
so that
no,
we can do
yes,
sound.
but I just want to say that my favorite flavor right now is called Lavender Love, and it's absolutely delicious, and I just love any of the flavors
They're
that say
all
love
so
in them.
good. They're all so good.
Because they
The
usually...
lavender one is good, and the other one I have in my fridge is the spring edition, which is the rose one.
Oh, I love the rose one.
I love
Yeah.
floral kombuchas. I honestly do. I love
Yeah,
the
that one's
floral
called
ones.
Pure Love or something.
And there's another one called Lavender Field or something like that, and it's like lavender cardamom. Oof.
but
It's not this brown though. Sorry, GTS.
anything with rose in it, I'm there.
Oh, yes, exactly.
I love
exactly.
rose flavored kombucha. It is so delicious. So thank you so much for sponsoring us, Synergy GTS.
In the
sorry.
future, we wish. Thank you.
Yes, no, but I'm manifesting that you are going to listen to this and see us and sponsor us, because we will be gladly representing you on the main stage of life.
Okay, anyway, we're not going to give you any more time until you pay us. I'm like, that's enough. We're actually not sponsored, so that's enough. You don't get anything until you sponsor us. And then you can have a whole episode. But we'll talk about the benefits of kombucha in that episode.
And your whole story, because I know everything about you.
Anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand here. Okay, yeah, that's my long story short. Is that honestly, I actually genuinely do feel like outside of alien encounters, the majority of my paranormal experiences have been glitches in the matrix, like that. Like little things that are not necessarily, once again, right, what you would consider traditionally paranormal, but things that just do not add up and have no obvious explanation other than the fabric of the universe being a lot more complicated than, just the physical world. Exactly.
Yeah, I think I'll tell a story also that, like, with me and my brother one time, basically an object disappeared, and then we were like, oh, okay, it's not there. And then we looked at this object, it was not there. And then about 30 seconds later, we look back and it was there. So, and that was one moment where me and him, I think that if someone would have come to me and told me that story, I would have just quickly dismissed them. But, or even especially my brother, right? My younger brother, I would have been like, yeah, right, Anthony, okay? But the thing is that because I was there and because I witnessed it myself, I was shooketh, and we thought like, wow, you know, it was either a glitch in the Matrix, like how Marissa's saying, it was a glitch in the Matrix, or it was something like a ghost taking this and putting it somewhere else and then bringing it back. Who effing knows? But this was in a container, so it's like, how did this happen? And there's no way that it was me or my brother, because we were both just engaged in a conversation.
Right. It's like, how does the container go from completely empty 1 second when you looked at it multiple times, knowing that you both acknowledged that it was empty, and then not even a full couple minutes later, and the things are back in the container.
Yeah, and then right around this time is when I decided, I know that, whatever, I don't really care how this sounds. I decided, I was like, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of experiencing paranormal things.
Yeah.
I said to the universe, I said to God, basically, you know what? My family experiences paranormal things. Bring it on, okay?
Yeah.
And around this time is when I actually had my first ghost experience in a very long time, where I was sitting with my grandmother and sitting with my aunt, and we were sitting in my old home, my childhood home, and I'm sitting and I'm talking with my grandmother, and in the other room, which was the laundry room where they keep the pots and the pans and the washer and dryer, blah blah. I essentially saw this string go up into the air as if it was being picked up. As if like someone had picked it up and held it in the air and let it go, okay? And at first I thought maybe I saw the tail of my cat, because I had a cat back then that was a black and white cat, and her tail was black. So I thought, oh, maybe I'm just, from the corner of my eye, I'm seeing this cat's tail. No, I was not, because the ghost was like, just in case you didn't see exactly what you think you saw, let me just do it again. And so the string got picked up and held up in the air and held there for a good second and then let go. And I just jumped out of my chair, and I didn't want to scare my grandmother or scare my aunt or anything, but I just jumped up out of the chair and I said, "Oh my gosh, I just saw a ghost. I just saw a ghost."
Yeah.
And my aunt and my grandmother are obviously just, like, what?
Right.
And I go over to around the corner. I go around the corner of the doorway. I look, and the thing is still swinging. The string to the apron is still swinging. So I saw what I saw, and I know that was a ghost. And the thing is that my great-grandmother actually did pass away in that house. So for me, whether or not it was some sort of spirit or entity that was not related to me at all, maybe like existed on this piece of property, because we live on indigenous lands. We live in a place where people have lived here for 30,000 years. Right. So who knows the story behind some of the spirits that could be inherited or inhabiting certain parts of the land that are here. But it very well could have been my great-grandmother, right?
I do think it's interesting, too, that you say that did happen around the time that you were kind of opening up to it, because I do think, honestly, that at times you do, I think that the thing about it is, right, like, certain people describe themselves as mediums. Certain people have a more obvious connection to, the spiritual realms in different ways, right? There's so many abilities that people have that they're more naturally inclined to. And you know what's actually interesting? Fun fact, I will say this. I saw recently a TikTok about how these scientists conducted studies with people who had psychic abilities, with people who had mediumship abilities, versus people who did not have abilities. And they had a test group, a group of people who did not have any abilities, that did not, ever have any kind of, interest even in these things, that were just like normal everyday people without any psychic abilities or connections or anything like that. And the people who were psychic, they matched them based on their ages, their races, like their nationalities, like all of these different factors, so that they were like, that's the exact same demographic of people, right? And then they studied their DNA and their brain functioning. And they found that there was a difference in every single person that had the psychic abilities versus the control group. And it was this tiny strand of DNA that is in what is normally categorized as our junk DNA, which is essentially the DNA that they don't understand, and that's what they call it. Exactly. That's literally what it is. That's literally what it is. They just don't understand it, and that's what it's called, because, the theory behind that, to be fair, is that basically we have all this DNA that came from all of our millions of years of evolution that's no longer in use. That's the theory behind it. And so that's why it's called junk DNA. That it's like the idea that only a portion of our DNA is actually being utilized, which, yeah, exactly, is very questionable and not confirmed, and they don't understand it. But regardless, they found that this tiny portion of DNA was activated in these individuals with the psychic abilities. And they also found that it was directly linked to fear. And I thought that was so interesting. And another thing that they found is that they basically correlated the fact that this DNA started becoming more and more dormant in people, that like it wasn't even that it wasn't activated in the other people, it was just that they didn't have that or something. It was like a specific DNA sequence they no longer had. And they were able to compare, and, you know, of course they have whole databases now. And they essentially found that the people who had essentially not had this DNA sequence anymore, the people that evolved to not have this anymore, were people that were more impacted by colonialism. And that they directly linked this kind of shutting off of this psychic ability, this connection with spirit, to fear, to being afraid of it. And they correlated that with the forced spread of Christianity and all of these different religions and the colonization of the world that literally, you know, made these things taboo, punishable by death and torture. Yeah, you know? Which is... And so, of course, people developed these, the ones that survived, right? Developed this innate fear around these abilities to the point where they were suppressed. That was kind of like their conclusion.
No, yeah. I think that, like, the last thing I want to say on this episode is that my grandfather, he's where I get my Native American DNA from. And I remember when he first saw me meditating in our backyard, I had a candle and, like, some stones, and I remember him telling me, you know, pulling me aside and basically asking me if I was worshiping the devil. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like, the fact that this guy thinks that I'm worshiping the devil when I'm meditating, when I'm just peacefully sitting there breathing and doing this ancient practice, and this man thinks that this is evil. Right. So yeah, no, I completely believe that. Yeah. But yeah, we have endless stories about our different paranormal experiences.
I do want to throw, like, just kind of like a couple random things out there and just some final thoughts. But yeah, I think that the bottom line is, like, you know, we've had so many different experiences. I have had, like, different interactions, various things, like you said, that I can't explain. I talk about them more on the episode that I talked about on my on my YouTube channel. If you guys want to go watch that, I have more stories about specifically, like, my UFO stories, because we've had some insane UFO experiences that I'm sure we'll get into in another episode as well. And also just, different paranormal experiences. But I think that the bottom line of it is that I think that we need to normalize subtracting the fear from things that we don't understand. And I think that this idea of paranormal has been made into this thing that is associated with horror movies, right? And it's, like, depicted in the media as something that's so scary. I think that the media really kind of pushes this narrative of supernatural and paranormal things being scary. And so, of course, like I said, right, this is part of colonialism. This is, you know, the result of our current society. That is why people have so much fear around these topics. But I think that it's really powerful and that it's really important to strip away the fear and realize that just because you don't understand it and just because it's outside of the realm of what you've been told is normal does not mean that it's evil or inherently bad or that it can't be a powerful thing, you know? Everyone can develop psychic abilities. Everyone can tap into this connection, and you can strip away the fear, right? And that is what people were doing for most of history, right? Like, humans and indigenous cultures did have a much, you know, more tight bond with the spirits, with the energies of the world. And so I just think it's important to be open-minded. And if you ever do have a paranormal experience, I would encourage you to not immediately respond with fear and to, you know, be genuinely open to receiving all of the energies that the universe has to offer, because maybe you're that person that has, you know, mediumship abilities that can transform people's lives. And help people. If you strip away the fear, you can, you know, embrace that and completely transform your own life and transform that energy into love and peace and empowerment. And I think that's the case for so many things, right? UFO experiences, ghost experiences, even glitches in the Matrix, right? Can
like
offer
things disappearing,
exactly,
leave you in awe, don't
yes,
make you scared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's like maybe this is the universe trying to tell you that you need to, you know, embrace the fact that this is an energetic world and that there's multiple dimensions and that things are not quite as simple as you think. You know, maybe this is the universe trying to get your attention that
there's
you
more
need
out
to
there.
expand your perspective a little bit and really look at your place in the universe and what is it to really be human on this earth and what is this world really and what is this energy really and what is consciousness, right? It's,
okay.
I guess my point is that
ton of loaded
it's
questions.
a really powerful topic to discuss, and I just think it is important that as individuals, we do our best to destigmatize it. I guess that's my point, that, you know, don't judge a book by its cover. Just like you wouldn't assume that another person or an animal is automatically going to be like, you know, evil. You shouldn't assume that about any energy.
I love animal mediums. I love Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium. I love mediums, man, and I've always wanted to embrace that side of reality and would be even open to being a medium one day. But I think that it is going to take dealing with a lot of like fear, how we talked about.
You have to just let go of the fear. I think that's the key, and I think that 100% as well, that it's been proven not only in that, like, you know, it's been proven, like, I mean, multiple times people have, you know, really put their effort in, and that the more that you open up to it, the more that you open the door and the more that you open your mind, you are going to have more and more experiences. But it's really, you know, some people are not comfortable with that, but maybe that can be an opportunity for reflection of, why does this make me uncomfortable? Maybe this is an opportunity to grow and expand my own mind and my own perspective on the world. And in some cases, maybe it leads to, wow, maybe I am more powerful and magical and connected with all of this energy than I thought. And maybe life is more than just the physical world. And maybe there is, you know, a bigger picture out there that can make me realize something bigger about myself. And so I think it's a powerful thing regardless. And, you know, that's not what's usually talked about when it comes to paranormal things. Media is one thing, you know, but reality is something different. And those two things don't always have to match up.
I think the last thing I'll say is that the alien experience that I had when I was really young with all of my cousins was a moment where I left that night thinking to myself, there's much more to this life than what I see. And I, like, back then that was actually when my mother had just passed away. And so I remember thinking when she passed away, you know, this is it. You know, the world just keeps spinning and life just goes on and things are pointless. And I was falling into this type of mentality.
Right.
And then when we experienced this, that was where I was like, oh my gosh, there really is more to this life than this. There is grander things than we can't even comprehend. And I think we're on the journey. I think that everybody is moving towards being more and more open and welcoming to these things, and going back to a time where people weren't punished or ostracized or anything like this for practicing these things.
People literally uncolonizing themselves, right? And like embracing once again the spiritual world and realizing that, you know, once again, even science is realizing that this is an energetic world and that things are not simple and that things are not what they seem. And our perception as humans is so limited anyway that even what you do experience is just a glimpse.
Yeah, we see this much light, tiny portion of light out of a giant
and sound
amount of light.
And smell and all of it. And so
everything is limited.
You know, we live in a complicated, beautiful, fascinating world, but I feel like that does overwhelm some people and it can throw you into an existential crisis. But instead, I think that it's better to let it empower you and make you realize, wow, you exist in this magical, beautiful world. And so what does that mean? What can you really do? Who can you really be? What are you really?
Okay.
You know? And
with all of those questions.
I would say that you know, it's all about
Monty's
your
left
perspective.
you with about 50
It's all
questions
about
to think about.
It's not, you know, I think I'm just offering a perspective.
I know. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm is there. But with that said, we are going to end this episode of episode 6.
What is your craziest paranormal experiences? Please share it in the comments if you're on YouTube. We would love to hear from you. Or thank you for listening if you're listening on the music.
Spotify.
Yes, exactly.
Apple,
Streaming apps. We appreciate you.
The podcast.
Hope you like our voices. Maybe it'll work now. No, it didn't work. I tried to open the kombucha again so you could get a little ASMR, but
thank you, Synergy GTS,
I tried
for
my best,
sponsoring us.
guys.
I'm manifesting that.
I don't know. I just don't want to say that they're sponsoring us because I don't want to get in legal trouble. They're not really sponsoring us.
You are not. Disclaimer: they are not really sponsoring us.
This episode is for entertainment purposes only.
Yes, this is just so that they can see the enthusiasm that we have around GTS kombucha.
Exactly.
There we go.
I'm gonna open this and there's gonna be no kombucha left. It's gonna be another glitch in the Matrix.
It's already empty.
Who drank my kombucha? It was probably the aliens or the ghosts or something. Honestly,
it's a Mandela effect. Okay, bye.
This is gonna appear in the alien ship in a second.
Okay. Have a beautiful day, night, evening, whatever it is.
We love you so much. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you on the next episode of
Andy
and Maudie,
the podcast.
Bye. Bye. Say hi to your ghost for us.